Joseph Robinette Biden, Jr. do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States.
the office of President of the United States.
When Joe Biden took the oath as the 46th President of the United States in January 2021, it felt like a return to normality after the chaos of the previous 4 years under Donald Trump.
So help me God.
Congratulations, Mr. President.
There were high hopes that his experience and sense of decency would lead America into better times. Despite facing a deeply divided Congress, Biden delivered on his promise to work across the aisle. He pushed through some landmark bills, including $1 trillion infrastructure package.
He had 4 landmark pieces of legislation that were passed and signed into law, 2 with really big bipartisan majorities. And that is far and away more than any president since Lyndon Johnson has done.
But many blamed him for a stubbornly high rate of inflation, which became the most important issue for millions of people. His ventures into foreign policy were also mixed. His staunch support for Ukraine helped that country resist Russian aggression. But the chaotic withdrawal of American forces from Afghanistan and the return to power of the Taliban was seized upon by Republicans as evidence of incompetence. And he also failed to keep his own party on side. Many Democrats were angered by his continued support for Israel during the Gaza war.
Good afternoon.
Not surprisingly, he was anxious to take credit for the ceasefire agreement.
The elements of this deal were what I laid out in detail this past May, which was embraced by countries around the world and endorsed overwhelmingly by the UN Security Council.
Ultimately, though, it turned out that Joe Biden's biggest problem was one he had no control over: his age. He was the oldest ever occupant of the White House, and at times it showed. He often seemed frail physically and mentally, sometimes not quite with it.
The 46th President of the United States, Joe Biden.
It all came to a head during a disastrous presidential debate in Atlanta, when Biden completely lost his train of thought.
Dealing with everything we have to do with,
He was forced to pull out of his campaign for re-election. His replacement, Kamala Harris, led the Democrats to a crushing defeat. Critics say if Biden had quit earlier, the party would have had time to choose a more suitable candidate.
I think right now people look at him not stepping down as a real blemish on his legacy. But I think the longer we look back at him, I think that there will be less of a criticism for that particular decision and more of a focus on the longer lasting achievements that he's likely to have.
Whatever history's ultimate verdict on his presidency, it's unlikely anyone will question the commitment of a man who was a significant presence on the American political scene for half a century. John Brain, TRT World, Washington.